Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to set up your project report and specifically discuss the formatting requirements and getting the page numbers right. What we find for most internship students is that they really struggle with getting the formatting and the page numbers and the section headings and the table of contents all set up because most of our students aren't really familiar with the various features of Microsoft Word. Many of our students haven't went through the Business Computer Information Systems or BCIS class, and a lot of folks haven't had the opportunity to dig around and play with the tools in Microsoft Word. Now, I will mention that it's very important that you use Microsoft Word whenever you build your project report because the formatting tools there are what's needed in order to make this project report line up the way it's supposed to. Before we get to the page numbers, let's talk about some of the general requirements. From a font perspective, one of the things that we have to use is a Times New Roman 12-point font. We use 12-point fonts because they're easy to read, but Times New Roman has little serifs, or the little wings at the end of some of the letters, that help to make those letters stand out and be more clear in a printed format. In addition to Times New Roman 12-point font, it's really important that we set up our document to be double spaced. What it means by double spaced is after the end of a line, when Word automatically brings you to the next line, it's going to skip a space. That space serves two purposes. One, it keeps the document more legible, and two, it gives your instructors a place to write notes or comments or make corrections when we review the document. Now for the margins, most papers you've probably been able to use the standard margins that are set in Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word uses 1-inch margins all the way around, the top, the bottom, the left, and the right for its default settings. However, the project report requires a slightly different setting for the cover page. The bottom margin for the cover page is set at 1.5 inches, and we'll show you how to set that up here in just a moment. Now for the headings, and as we look through the document, we'll see, especially if you look at the sample report, we'll see that there's two different levels of headings in the body content. Level 1 headings, or those are the section headings that you see in the sample, are all capital letters throughout the title, and they're centered. So it'll say Section 1 in all caps, Introduction on the next line, and in all caps. Now for the subheadings, or the Level 2 headings, those are going to be title case, like if we were typing the title of a book, important words are capitalized. In addition, the level 2 headings are going to be bold and centered. So what I expected to learn is one of the many subheadings that are used in this report, and that would be bold, centered, and title cased. Now, when we look at the page numbers, there's actually 3 different types of page numbers that we use within this report. All of these should be done in Times New Roman 12-point font, just like all of the other text within our document. But when we look at the cover page, there is no page number. So we need to set our title page up differently than we set up our table of contents in our appendix. On the table of contents in the appendix, we use what we call preparatory page numbers. These are lowercase Roman numerals. So for instance, the letter I or II for 2, but they're going to be in lowercase. And then for the content of the report, we're going to use Arabic numerals, or the numbers that you're most familiar with, and we're going to begin our count again at the number 1. So let's take a look at how we can start from a brand new Microsoft Word document and begin setting our formatting up so that we'll be ready to type up our report and have minimal issues with formatting. Now, I've opened up Microsoft Word 2016. The reason I'm using Microsoft Word 2016 is that is the Microsoft Word version that comes with the license that both I and you are provided for free by McLennan Community College. Now, once I open Microsoft Word, it gives me the option to select from one of the many documents that I've been working on or to create a new document. In this case, we don't need a template. We just want to start with a blank document. So we're going to click blank document twice, and we see that the page reloads. We get that standard interface that we're used to seeing. But we need to make a few settings to get us started. So first, let's select where it says paragraph in the taskbar. If you don't see paragraph, it may be because you're not on the Home tab. So let's make sure that we click Home. Then next to the word paragraph, there's this little box with an arrow that leads us to paragraph settings. we're going to click that and change some of the settings. Specifically, we're coming to the spacing, and we're going to change line spacing from multiple, which is default for Windows and for Microsoft Word 2016, and we're going to change that to double. We notice that the at box is now empty, and we need to adjust the spacing so that there is 0 space both before and after. So we're going to decrease the after down to 0 points, and we're going to save by clicking OK. Now we've set our entire document to be double spaced. We also want to change from the Home tab the text so that it matches our font properties that we're required to have. So in the drop down for the font, we're going to click the down arrow and we're going to select Times New Roman. If yours doesn't appear in the recently used fonts, scroll all the way down. This list is in alphabetical order. We're going to scroll all the way down to the T's and find Times New Roman. Lastly, we want to click the font size increase button to increase the font size to 12. You can also select a 12-point font size by clicking the down arrow for the drop-down box next to this set of numbers, which indicates the font size, and select 12. So now we have a double-spaced Times New Roman 12-point font setup for our document. Now remember, we need to make some adjustments to the margins and to the page numbers, but because the margins and the page numbers are different for different parts of the paper, we need to do a little bit of work in the background to make that setup work correctly. Now there's instructions provided in the weekly content that tell you step by step how to do this, but I'm going to walk you through it on the video. First, let's put some placeholder text so that we know what section of the paper we're working on. So here I'm just going to type cover page. I'm going to press the enter key, and now I want to insert a special type of break called a section break. And what section breaks do is they differentiate between the different parts of your paper so that you can make different settings that don't affect everything. It only affects the parts you want to change. So I'm going to press the Alt key, not press and hold, just press and release, the Alt key, then the letter I for insert, and the letter B for break. And we see a pop-up that says, that lists the different types of breaks that we can use. In this case, we want a next page section break. We want to create a new section and we want it to start on the next page. Once we click next page section break, we can hit OK, and we notice that it brings us to a new page. Now I have my page zoomed out so that we see the two pages line up next to each other. Yours may be zoomed in closer, and so you may only see one page and it may bring you to the new page. Now in this second part, I want a table of contents. And on the following page, we want our appendix. So the easiest way without having to press a bunch of enters throughout our document is to press the enter key once so that we have a blank line to work from whenever we start creating the table of contents. And we're going to press it one more time to get to the next line down. Now we're going to use that break functionality we looked at earlier, but we don't want to go to a new section just yet. So we're going to press Alt I B so that we get the break prompt once again, and this time we just want a page break. Now you can also achieve the same functionality by holding the control button and pressing enter. Now on the third page of the document, this is where our appendix will be located. We're going to press enter and enter once again so that we have room to work. And now we need to go to the third part, and we'll get the content built into this here in a little bit, but we want to get that third part set up. So we're going to do Alt I B one more time and add a next page section break. Now we have our fourth page, and this is where section 1, introduction, would begin. Now, we have these different sections, but our document looks no different. Here's where we're going to start making our changes. Okay, so down here at the very bottom of the page, if we double click, all right, we're going to click twice in fast succession. We double click and it opens our header and footer. And now we can see that we have a footer for section 1, a footer for section 2, and a footer for section 3. We also have a header for each of those. Now, one thing that we see is in section 2, our footer is linked to the footer in the first section, but we want these to be different. So what we want to do is come up to the toolbar, make sure that we've selected the Design tab under Header and Footer Tools, and unclick or click to release the Link to Previous button. And now we see that that little notation has disappeared. We're going to do the same thing for the footer in section 3. We're going to click into that footer. We're going to click the Link to Previous to unselect that button. And now we have 3 standalone sections in our document. So let's take care of the easiest thing that we need to do here first. Remember, the first page, our cover page, has different margins. So if we click in the footer for section 1, we can now come to Layout in our toolbar, select Margins, and then use Custom Margins to make our changes. And remember, for the cover page, the margins are 1 inch all the way around except for the bottom margin, which should be 1.5 inches or 1.5 inches. When we click OK, we'll see Word updates that page and it moves this dotted line that indicates our margin upward to account for that extra ½ inch of space. Our other sections have stayed the same. They haven't changed. That's going to benefit us, especially here now that we're fixing to do our page numbers. So let's come over here to section 2, which happens to be the first page of our table of contents. When we click in the footer, we now move over to that page, and we're going to come back to the toolbar. And in the header and footer tools, we're going to click Design. Now we want to add a page number, and we can do that by clicking the little button with the drop down, and it's going to give us some options. We want our page number at the bottom of the page, and we can put just a plain number, and we'll use the second option because it is centered to the page. And it drops the page number 2, which is correct. It is the second page of the document. However, when we look by highlighting that page number and we go back to the Home toolbar option, we see that that is Calibri 11 point font, which is not what we need. So let's change that to Times New Roman 12 point font. Helps if I click on it. There we go. Times New Roman 12 point font. And remember, this section should use preparatory numbers. So we're going to right click on the page number and we're going to select Format Page Numbers. And here we have a couple of different options. The one we want to pay attention to right now is the number format because it's set for Arabic numerals. But we want preparatory numbers, so we can scroll down and select the lowercase I and the lowercase ii, which indicates 2, and then click OK. Now our page numbers have changed for both the table of contents page and the appendix page. But there's no page numbers in the content of the report. So let's fix that. We click into section 3. We're going to go back to our header and footer tools, select Design. We're going to insert a page number at the bottom of the page. We're going to select that second option so that it gives us a plain number in the center of the page. But this time, it starts at the number 4, which is technically correct because it is the 4th page of the document. But for the purposes of this report, we want to start our content on page 1 after the preparatory numbers. So we're going to highlight that number. We're going to change the font to be Times New Roman 12 point. And then we're going to right click just as we did before on that page number and select Format Page Numbers. But this time, instead of changing the number format, we want to change the page numbering. We want it to start at number 1 instead of continuing from the previous section. In using this approach, we can start the numbering anywhere we want when creating a document. For our report, we need it to start at 1, so we'll leave it at 1 and hit OK. And now, if we double click back in the white space of any one of the pages, we get back to our normal formatting in our normal approach to using Word, but we see that for each of these pages, our page numbers are correct, and so are our margins.